Hello everyone, and welcome to History of the Ancient World. Today, we're marching back in time to the age of bronze and iron, where empires were forged on the anvil of war. We're going to explore the fascinating and often brutal world of ancient military tactics. How did legendary commanders like Alexander the Great, Hannibal Barca, and Julius Caesar achieve their seemingly impossible victories? It wasn't just about numbers or brute force, it was about strategy, discipline, and groundbreaking innovations. Let's start with one of the most iconic formations in military history, the Greek phalanx. Picture this, a dense block of soldiers, shoulder to shoulder, each armed with a long spear called a sarissa and a shield. This wall of spears was almost impenetrable from the front. The key to the phalanx was cohesion. Every man relied on the man next to him. It was a testament to the power of unity and discipline. The Spartans in particular were masters of the phalanx, turning their entire society into a military machine that perfected this formation. Their stand at Thermopylae is legendary, not just for their bravery, but for how effectively they used the phalanx in a narrow pass to hold off a vastly superior Persian force. But the phalanx had a weakness. It was slow and inflexible. If you could outflank it, get around to its sides or rear, it would crumble. And this is exactly what the Romans exploited. Enter the Roman legion. The Romans were tactical geniuses. Instead of one massive, rigid block of men, they organized their army into smaller, more flexible units called maniples and later cohorts. This modular design allowed the legion to adapt to any terrain and any enemy. A Roman legion could fight in a solid line like a phalanx, but it could also detach units to protect its flanks or exploit a gap in the enemy's line. The legion was divided into three lines. The front line was the hastati, the youngest and most eager soldiers. Behind them were the principes, men in the prime of their fighting years. And in the rear were the triarii, the grizzled veterans. The idea was to wear down the enemy with the first two lines, and if things got desperate, the triarii would kneel, forming a final, unshakable wall of spears. The saying, "It has come to the triarii," became a Roman expression for a last-ditch effort. This system of cycling fresh troops into the battle was a game-changer, allowing the Romans to sustain combat for much longer than their opponents. Now, let's talk about a commander who brilliantly defeated these very Romans, Hannibal Barca of Carthage. His masterpiece was the Battle of Cannae. Hannibal faced a much larger Roman army, but he used a tactic that is still studied in military academies today, the double envelopment, or pincer movement. He placed his weaker troops in the center of his line, and his strongest, most experienced soldiers on the wings. As the battle began, the Roman legions, confident in their strength, pushed deep into the Carthaginian center. This was exactly what Hannibal wanted. His center slowly gave ground, bending backward like a bow. This drew the Romans further and further into a trap. Once the Romans were fully committed, Hannibal sprung his trap. His elite cavalry, having already defeated their Roman counterparts, swept around and attacked the Roman rear, while his infantry on the wings closed in from the sides. The Roman army was completely surrounded, packed so tightly they could barely even lift their swords. It was a slaughter. Cannae remains one of the most devastating tactical victories in history. A perfect example of how superior strategy can overcome superior numbers. Of course, we can't discuss ancient tactics without mentioning Alexander the Great. He inherited the Macedonian phalanx from his father, Philip II, who had lengthened the spears and perfected the formation. But Alexander added his own special ingredient, the combined arms approach. He understood that infantry alone wasn't enough. He masterfully coordinated his powerful phalanx with his elite companion cavalry. His signature move was the hammer and anvil. The phalanx would act as the anvil, fixing the enemy infantry in place. Then, Alexander himself would lead his cavalry, the hammer, on a decisive charge, smashing into the enemy's flank or rear, often targeting the enemy commander directly. This tactic required perfect timing and incredible battlefield awareness. At the Battle of Gaugamela, against the massive Persian army of Darius III, Alexander spotted a gap in the Persian line. He led his cavalry in a daring diagonal charge straight for Darius himself. When Darius fled the battlefield, the Persian army's morale shattered and a great victory was won. But warfare wasn't just about open battles. Sieges were just as important. The Romans were unparalleled masters of siegecraft. When they encountered a city that wouldn't surrender, they would build a massive wall around it, a circumvallation, to cut it off from any help. Then they would build incredible siege engines, towering siege towers, powerful catapults called onages that could hurl massive stones, and ballistae, which were essentially giant crossbows that fired heavy bolts. The siege of Alesia is a prime example. Julius Caesar was besieging the Gallic chieftain Vercingetorix. But then a huge Gallic relief army arrived to attack Caesar from the outside. Caesar found himself trapped between two armies. What did he do? He built a second wall facing outwards, a contravallation, to defend against the relief force. He was simultaneously besieging and being besieged. For weeks, the Romans fought off attacks from both sides until finally both Gallic forces were defeated. It was an astonishing feat of engineering and military discipline that secured Gaul for Rome. From the rigid discipline of the phalanx to the flexible legions of Rome, the cunning traps of Hannibal and the combined arms brilliance of Alexander, the ancient world was a laboratory of military innovation. These tactics and strategies didn't just win battles, they built and destroyed empires, shaping the course of history. They laid the foundations for military thinking that would endure for centuries, influencing commanders from Napoleon all the way to the generals of the modern era. The principles of discipline, flexibility, and coordination are as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the battlefields of antiquity. If you found this fascinating, make sure to like the video and subscribe to History of the Ancient World for more deep dives into the past. Let us know in the comments which ancient battle or commander you'd like to see us cover next. Until then, stay curious.